It's time for the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here. Today on the big program, lots to get to, lots to talk about. Had a president traveling to Chicago. Big speech on the economy. Bidenomics, now the buzz of the town. And look, I give the president credit, about time. I think he's been listening to the show. Got to go out there and tout what you're doing. Got to talk about what you're doing. Got to show the successes. I know there are a lot of people out there going, this is going to, when history looks back, this is going to be, one of the most consequential presidencies, in our lifetime because of, all the things that he's doing and all the work that Jelly Bucket Joe's showing up and doing. You got to get out there and talk about it. Yeah, that's the future. This is the now. And the now is, well, Builder Biden came out and talked about it. Look, my economy, middle out, bottom up. We're going to help working people. And as he said, look, the reality is he came out, he said, I meant what I said when I said I was going to be the most pro-union president in American history. And I make no apologies for it. Music to the ears. This is one of those things where you go, Joe, keep it up. Get out there. Tout the horn a little bit, toot the horn a little bit. And what this really sets up is, and this is what I've been talking about for a while. So when people go, hey, do you think Biden's doing a good job? I go, yeah, absolutely. He's moving us away from 40 plus years of supply side voodoo Reaganomics and bad neoliberalism. He's moving us in a direction where working people actually, I don't know, maybe have a shot. And their government actually gives a tinker's damn about them. So for me, this is that kind of, and maybe it's just being a little wonky, but it's the difference between what we've been struggling and suffering under Reagan forward. I would even argue Carter forward, with all the neoliberalism and the bad trade deals and all this tax fetish stuff. Into a time where we're going, look, we're going to support working people. We're going to support, people who show up and punch the clock and work hard. They should have an opportunity to get ahead. And as he said in his speech, when we invest in our people, when we strengthen the middle class, we see economic growth that benefits all Americans. That's the American dream. And 40 years of trickle down limited that dream just to those at the top. And, this is my speech. This is what we've been talking about here. Well, let me check the watch. All 18 years I've been doing this show. Now he points out Bidenomics is working. Things are going in the right direction. He points out that the U.S. has had the highest economic growth among the world-leading economies since the pandemic. He said we've added over 13 million jobs, more jobs in 2 years than any president added in 4 years. And he said that's no accident. And here it is. Bang. That's Bidenomics. And it is. I mean, this is one of those things where Biden's approval rating should be through the roof when you look at what's actually gotten done. Now, here's the thing. There was an interesting column over at the New Republic where a guy's asked the question, why isn't Biden more popular? And the reality is on the left, a lot of people need a lot of things. There's a lot of stuff. There's a list of, I say this to my wife all the time. I've got a honey-do list so long that, I got 1,000 things I'm not going to get to today. I'll get to some stuff, not going to get to the rest. And this is what liberals, the left, Democrats have to deal with. Because there's a list of 50, 60, 100 things that people want. Education, housing, healthcare, infrastructure, you name it. It's got to be exhausting. But you look at the other side, Republicans, cons, they're really two things. Cut my taxes and punish people I don't like. That's pretty simple. And look, I love the guy over at the New Republic for saying that because it's true. And this is one of those moments where, Democrats got to get out there and support Joe Biden. This is one of those things where when someone says, well, what's he done? Shall we start and give the lecture? The fact that we got something coming out of the pandemic to help families get through it. The American Rescue Plan that helped families get through the pandemic, stay on their feet. That was big. The Inflation Reduction Act, the infrastructure bill. This is big stuff. Fundamentally changing our economy in good ways that I've been calling for years. Now, it's interesting. I got an email recently from John in Santa Fe. And John says, Rick, you asked what policies Republicans have proposed to help working people. And John lists a couple of things. John says Republicans fight for tax cuts to reduce the burden on individuals. He says Republicans fight for deregulation to reduce government regulation and job-killing regulations. Talking points. He said Republicans want to unleash businesses and give them more flexibility. I get that, and I don't disagree. Republicans fight for right-to-work laws to protect workers from greedy unions. This is a Republican thing. They believe somehow passing this no rights at work that comes with no rights and no work benefits them. Not quite sure how John figured this out, but this is what they think. And he says Republicans fight for trade deals. We support free trade agreements that give businesses access to larger consumer bases. And he said these are fundamental to our capitalist system. Maybe if you got on board, you could earn those higher wages you keep demanding. No, none of that stuff leads to higher wages. In fact, we've been doing all of that stuff for 40 plus years because that, my friends, that is Reaganomics. That is what George H.W. Bush coined supply-side voodoo Reaganomics. Even H.W. didn't buy it, sold his soul to be vice president, but even he didn't buy the economic scheme. And what was voodoo Reaganomics? Massive tax cuts. Completely rewrote our tax code to give billionaires and big corporations more. When he took office, the top marginal tax rate in this country was 70%. So if you made like $2 million, that dollar over $2 million was taxed at 70%. He took that all the way down to 28%. And you wonder, gee, how did we get a billionaire class? How did we go from having 3 certified billionaires on the Forbes 400 list to now more than 400? I think we're at like 1,500 now. How do you think that happened? Massive redistribution of the tax code. We gave the wealthy all they wanted. And why? Well, because we believed, we were sold this idea that they were going to use the money in a way that would benefit us. And that by giving it to them, they would use it to build, big factories and all this stuff. And that would then trickle down. And it would come to raining down on us like rivers of gold and honey. And it was going to be magical. It's going to be amazing. And all it did was create massive inequality, the kind of inequality that we hadn't seen since before the Great Depression. They push for more deregulation. And how long have we been hearing about deregulation? We got to cut those job-killing regulations. Well, what about the people-killing lack of regulation? How about you, Texas? When do we get to enough? When does it? Never. That's the thing. Reagan pushed for monetary policy to squeeze inflation down to nothing. And that's great. Okay, inflation doesn't go up. But what does he do simultaneously? He attacks labor unions so that wages don't even keep up with the diminished inflation. And since Reagan forward, we have had deadline and declining wages for working people because of, well, guess what? Trade policies. Because where did NAFTA come from? I know everyone loves to blame Bill Clinton, and I do too. But NAFTA was birthed under Reagan. The idea came out of our, well, out of Bonzo, fully negotiated under H.W. Bush and signed under Clinton. It's a bad idea. It was against it from the beginning. Terrible. But this is what supply-side voodoo Reaganomics got us. So you got massive inequality. You've got workers whose wages are declining and jobs that are leaving the country because, well, we're promoting that now. All the while to pay for massive military spending. Now, again, we cut taxes incredibly, an enormous amount of tax cuts for the very wealthy, while massively increasing our spending on military. In fact, if those of us who were alive during that period, everyone remembers Star Wars. We were going to have this shield, and it was going to be great. Now, it was never functional. It was more of a scare tactic. We were basically throwing money into a hole to force the Soviets to keep up, which inevitably bankrupted them. But hey, we outspent them. But then what did we do? Massive generational debt and gutting of social programs. Again, kicking the poor, the least among us. And the reality is what happened during that era set the tone for the next 40 years. All of the bad ideas that came out of supply-side voodoo Reaganomics, all the bad ideas that came out of neoliberalism, we've been stuck with for decades. So I'm looking at this moment. I'm looking at Bidenomics. There's an opportunity here, folks. There's an opportunity to fundamentally change the next 40 years. Talking about Buy American provisions in government procurement. Saying, look, if we're going to spend money on EVs and we're going to spend money on infrastructure to help the next generation of automobiles, they got to be made here. And they've got to be done with jobs that are sustainable, jobs that are going to support a middle class. And I hate that term middle class, by the way. I believe in a prosperous working class because we all punch a clock. We all have to put food on the table, keep a roof over our heads. We're all trading time for dollars. I want to make sure that workers get the maximum dollar for their time. Just like corporate America wants to make sure that they get the maximum profit out of every moment of your time. And this is where I look at Biden and I look at the policies that they're moving, investing in good infrastructure, investing in things that we need here at home, reshoring manufacturing, and changing some of that. Is it fast enough for me? No, it's never going to be fast enough for me. But again, like I said from the New Republic piece, you've got, on the Democratic side, 100 things that everyone thinks is the most important thing ever. And on the other side, you got 2. Give me tax cuts and hate the same people I hate. So I give Biden credit. I thought the speech was excellent today. I thought the direction was good. I thought the fact that finally he's taking credit for something he's done is great. Now, got to get out there and sell this. Got to go out and start pointing at stuff, like bridges in Philadelphia. And start going out there and pointing at stuff like roads in Dubuque. Got to get out there and start pointing at stuff like, roads in Milwaukee or, bridges in Appleton or whatever is being built. Point at that and go, I did that. Take credit for it. Because the Orange Menace, if it were him and got half of this stuff done, boy, they'd be carrying him around on golden chariots and feeding him grapes. It's time for Democrats to stand up, speak out, and defend this guy because he's doing a good job. I want to hear your thoughts, though. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Going to take a quick break. Right back. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk.
From the steel mills of Pennsylvania to the auto factories of Michigan to the modern makers movement, manufacturing makes our nation great. I'm Scott Paul, President of the Alliance for American Manufacturing. We bring business and labor together to advocate for policies that everyone can agree on. Together, we can strengthen manufacturing and create good-paying American jobs. Help us keep it made in America.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
The old factory towns in America's heartland have been taking a beating. Thing is, though, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. The new CHIPS bill that got passed will bring jobs back home and has already resulted in big announcements of major new factories opening. The American Recovery Package has allowed cities and counties to hire new police officers and firefighters and start rebuilding their communities again. We're finally turning things around after 40 years of screwing over working people. But will we keep moving in the right direction? That's our choice.
So yesterday, Liz Cheney, we used the Liz Cheney quote yesterday that what we've done in our politics is create a situation where we're electing idiots. And I got to tell you, I agree with her. You know, not a Liz Cheney fan, not a Cheney family fan, but, you know, she's right. We have been electing idiots. And I saw this speech given by Illinois Governor Pritzker. It was a commencement speech at Northwestern University, and he did a spiel on, you know, how do you spot an idiot? So I'm like, you know, I gotta play this clip of Pritzker saying how do you spot an idiot? How do you come up with, how do you find them? And here's Governor Pritzker giving us the.
Whenever I'm about to do something, I think, would an idiot do that? And if they would, I do not do that thing. Dwight Schrute. The entire efficacy of this incredibly useful piece of information hinges upon your ability to pick the right idiot. I wish there was a foolproof way to spot idiots, but counterintuitively, some idiots are very smart. They can dazzle you with words and misdirection. They can get promoted above you at work. They can even be elected president. If you want to be successful in this world, you have to develop your own idiot detection system. As part of the responsibilities of being your commencement speaker, I'm going to share mine. Sure, I'm naturally suspicious of people who never saw the original Star Wars movies, and even more cautious of people who loved the prequels and the sequels. But I admit this is not a reliable idiot indicator. No, the best way to spot an idiot: look for the person who is cruel. Let me explain. When we see someone who doesn't look like us, or sound like us, or act like us, or love like us, or live like us, the first thought that crosses almost everyone's brain is rooted in either fear or judgment, or both. That's evolution. We survived as a species by being suspicious of things that we aren't familiar with. In order to be kind, we have to shut down that animal instinct and force our brain to travel a different pathway. Empathy and compassion are evolved states of being. They require the mental capacity to step past our most primal urges. This may be a surprising assessment because somewhere along the way in the last few years, our society has come to believe that weaponized cruelty is part of some well-thought-out master plan. Cruelty is seen by some as an adroit cudgel to gain power. Empathy and kindness are considered weak. Many important people look at the vulnerable only as rungs on a ladder to the top. I'm here to tell you that when someone's path through this world is marked with acts of cruelty, they have failed the first test of an advanced society. They never forced their animal brain to evolve past its first instinct. They never forged new mental pathways to overcome their own instinctual fears. And so their thinking and problem solving will lack the imagination and creativity that the kindest people have in spades. Over my many years in politics and business, I have found one thing to be universally true. The kindest person in the room is often the smartest.
No, and here's the thing. I agree with Governor Pritzker on that entirely. The kindest person is generally the smartest. The most compassionate person, generally the smartest, and most willing to help others. And this is where this weird thing, and I liked his frame of weaponized cruelty, because I've said, you've heard me say before, for a lot of our Republican friends, for the Trumpites, for the MAGA, the red hats, the cruelty is the point. It's all about the cruelty in their policies, in how they treat people, especially when you're talking about the poor, when you're talking about marginalized communities, when you're talking about people who lack the power and the ability to stand up to them. They're bullies. And the cruelty is the point. So I thought what Pritzker had to say was spot on, and something that we've been talking about for a while. The idea of when you look at people who are cruel in their policies, when you look at people who are willing to literally take food out of the mouths of children, these are not people who should be in elected office. These are idiots. And as Liz Cheney said, we've done in our politics, what we've done is we've created a situation where we are electing idiots. Let's go to the phones. Got Alice on line one. Alice, how are you?
Oh, I'm better than I was. I can talk now.
Good to hear.
I agree with what he said, and I agree with Liz Cheney, too. And, you know, it's very easy for anyone to destroy things and to be cruel and mean. That's the easiest thing to do. It's much harder to build things up and to create things. But we have to remember, the Republican Party seems to have adopted this Ayn Rand thing. And remember, her thing was, you trample on everyone that's weaker than you, and that the winner takes everything. And if we look at that and we trace it back, that actually can go all the way back to that Puritan mindset. And I'm going to say it again out there for everyone listening. The Puritans were not the Pilgrims. They were not the Quakers. They were the ones who came after the Pilgrims and the Quakers, and they soon gained power because that's what they did. And they proceeded to persecute everyone, including the Quakers and the Pilgrims. But, you know, that's the Republican Party. It has become a cult, right along with this evangelical religion. It is a cult.
Yeah.
It's not a political party. It's not a religion. It's a cult. But have a good evening.
Thanks,
Rick.
Alice. Appreciate it. No, I mean, look, as my grandfather always said, any idiot with a hammer can tear down a house. It takes a craftsman to build one. And what you're seeing right before our very eyes is Republican policies, basically just a hammer. Let's destroy everything, especially if it helps someone. If it helps someone in need, we got to destroy it. If it enriches the very wealthy and keeps the powerful happy that fill their campaign coffers, nice. But for working people, the heck with them. And, you know, Alice is right. I mean, you go back to the Reagan 80s. You know, the one who dies with the most toys wins. Greed is good. You know, the heck with my neighbor. It's all about me. And we've been trained to think that way. And so, you know, when John earlier sends me this email, you know, am I surprised it's all of the talking points that we've had for the last 40 years? Am I surprised that it lacks the imagination or the creativity to come up with other wording? No, because this is what we've been spoon-fed for decades, to believe that this is the way it has to be. And it doesn't. And this is where I give Biden credit. We're moving, again, I'm going to tell you straight out, not fast enough for me, but we are moving in that direction to undo 40 years of horrible policy. And I know someone's going, whoa, but you know, Joe Biden was part of that. Yeah. And here's that thing where you go, people can learn. People can come around and go, yeah, this was a mistake. We should probably not do that anymore. Maybe we should pursue the policies from a different era or new policies to where working people actually have a shot. Because look, the reality is, and this is where, the anger level could be increasing very soon. There's a lot of chaos in the workplace coming very soon. As AI and robotics grabs a hold of job after job and eviscerates them for working people, there's going to be a lot of problems. And we are going to need a strong social safety net to ensure that working people aren't left behind, like has happened in every transition throughout history. But I think we can be smart enough. I think we can be visionary enough to maybe not have it happen this time. I want to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Which side are you on? Bidenomics, Reaganomics?
Go fish. It takes a lot to raise a family. A good job, a good salary, and some patience. A lot of people my age are drowning in college debt. But I chose a different path. I'm a member of the IBEW, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. I work hard for my job, and I love what I do. I had a lot of choices for my future, but I made the best choice for my family. IBEW, the right choice.
The best way to strengthen America's economy? How about investing in America's fastest growing industry? Clean energy. It means millions of jobs that pay well and can't be outsourced, and lower utility costs for families. Congress, let's get it done.
Before we close the program, we want to take a moment to thank our viewers and to share a little bit about why we do what we do. At The Rick Smith Show, we believe that media today is almost entirely controlled by corporate greed. So we have now 24-hour news channels. But instead of 24 hours of news, what we get is 1 hour repeated 24 times, and with tons of commercials creating obscene amounts of profits. Information once presented as a public service has now become a private commodity. So when lies make money, lies are what we get. We get a corporate-controlled rage machine feeding us anger and hate, trying to convince us that our problems are right-left or red-blue, when they are and always have been up-down, the wealthiest 1% versus the rest of us. Our goal is to be an alternative to that machine, not as a news show with a fancy journalist out front, but as a talk show run by a union truck driver and a team of working-class heroes just like you. Everything we do, both what we get right and what we get wrong, is dedicated to advancing the interests of America's working families. No corporate ad buys, no think tanks, no focus groups, no talking points. We are media by working people, for working people. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you back here next time.